Raiders! Oakland, LA, Oakland, Vegas, Raider Nation, wherever, forever! You got your old Uncle Mosh and Raiders Fan Radio from Murf's Man Cave, taking a lighter journey into the dark side. Sit back, put your feet up, pop a top, and enjoy the ride. Here we go!
Look left, look right, Bolitnikov, a leaping pass, touchdown!
We miss you, we love you, and we'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
Way up the middle, intercepted Filipiano at the 50, time running down, Oakland football, and I think Oakland victory.
The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most zany, unbelievable, absolutely impossible dream of a play. Well, I love this team. I think this team can win. I think this team can win.
What is up, Raider Nation? Your old buddy Murf back here again for another what should be interesting episode of Raiders Fan Radio. You know, I often refer to podcast selfies and intentionally not doing podcast selfies because, you know, I don't think they're that interesting to just have you listen to me talk the whole time, because that's why, you know, it's better to have more, right? It's better to have some interaction. Well, so I always said I would never do this by myself, but as Uncle Mosh has got some real life stuff to attend to this week, and there was way too much still to get to in Raider Nation, that, you know, going into the bye week, so I still wanted to do an episode. And so with the newfound kind of live stream that we're and the interaction that we have on the live stream, I'm going to be dependent on you guys. And so it's not going to be just me, because we got the chat, we got the Sea of Fans mailbag, and also I have a really cool interview to share with you all this week as well. So this is kind of a podcast selfie, but not really, because again, I'm going to be dependent quite a bit and leaning on you guys on Raider Nation, our brain trust here in the chat. So thank you to Julian, Chevy Raider, Raphael, Raider Vic, already joining us in there, and so that's pretty cool. So you know, I guess I'm not totally alone here in Murf's Fan Cave, because you know, Uncle Mosh normally adorns the southern annex, the southern desk there in the annex of the Murf's Fan Cave desk. And so, you know, Wilson has been kind of filling in a little bit for him as a, you know, a co-host. So I went ahead and set up Wilson, so he's got his own little gig there. So anyways, welcome Wilson to the show there. And you can see how talkative he is. Now, of course, Wilson does have his buddy, little Murf there. Chevy Raider was asking about that. So there's little Murf there. Right, so he's got little Murf hanging out with him there, so he's sitting over there hanging out to Uncle Mosh's desk. So for those of you that don't know, we welcome Wilson here on the show, because we do not welcome Wilson's co-host, Tom Hanks, for kind of an incident, a little run-in that we had with Tom, and he's no longer welcome on the show. So we welcome Wilson, but not Tom Hanks. All right, so real quick, so before we get going tonight, we've been doing a giveaway, a tagline contest for a Carhartt 47 brand hat. You see I'm wearing the black version of it here, and then we've been doing a giveaway for one like this here, for one of the brown ones. And I'm going to announce who our winner is in that contest, and this is our last week with the doing the Carhartt promotion. And so we thank those folks. We thank you for their generosity, and we thank you for them being a supporter of us here at Raiders Fan Radio. What's up, everybody joining in there? I see Dirty in there. I see Joe, Mojo. We're going to hear from Mojo here in a little bit when we get to the Sea of Fans. And thank you, Raider Vic. Appreciate you, man, saying that we're not alone here on the show. And that's why I wore the Raider Nation shirt, man, because it's all about all of us, right? And listen, if there's a time for us to stick together, this is certainly it, because it's been rough to say the least. All right, so this is episode number 99 here on Raiders Fan Radio. We've got some cool stuff coming up next week. We have episode 100 to celebrate. And for those of you that are longtime listeners to this show, you know that we started this podcast going on 3 years ago now. And I started it with my cousin, Sonny. My cousin, Sonny, and I have been podcasting together for really almost like 6 years. We did some Madden stuff, and we've done all kinds of different things. And ultimately, we started Raiders Fan Radio because this was what our biggest passion was the Oakland Raiders. And so anyway, so Sonny's going to rejoin me next week for episode 100. So be on the lookout for that. Should be a lot of fun. He's had to take a hiatus from podcasting to focus on family, in which he should, and on work and whatnot. And so, but he's going to be able to spend some time back here. And then the next week, we're going to have a Halloween special. This will really be fun. Uncle Mosh will be back for that one. And for those of you that don't know, Uncle Mosh is a theater teacher, and he's all about like makeup and costumes and stuff. So needless to say, that should be interesting for the YouTube crowd. And so that's coming up the next couple of shows. So it'll be pretty fun stuff here going through. And hopefully we'll have some like wins to talk about. I know we're not really familiar with that being Raiders fans. We don't know what W's are. Appreciate the kind words about Sonny there. Yeah, Sonny's great. Sonny's he's still as passionate of a Raider fan as he always has been. He just hasn't had time to be on the show. But anyway, so you can always check us out all over the interwebs. Of course, thank you to those of you again that are joining us here on YouTube. You can always find us. That is youtube.com/Murf's Fan Cave. That's MURFS Fan Cave. And you can find us on all podcast services, and we'll have Uncle Mosh tell us about that right now.
All right, boys and girls, pay attention. You got your old Uncle Mosh here with an update. That's right. I got some stuff for you. Take out a piece of paper, a pencil, a pen. Heck, use your pocket knife and carve the info into your dashboard as you're driving down the highway. First off, you need to like us on our fan page on Facebook. That's right. Go to Facebook at Raiders Fan Radio Podcast. Don't forget about the Twitter. You know your old Uncle Mosh, he twits now. That's right. Go to at Raiders Fan Radio. Also, don't forget the Instagram at Raiders Fan Radio. Or what about our website? That's right, RaidersFanRadio.com. Heck, if you want to, you can even email us, show at RaidersFanRadio.com, or call us on the Raiders Fan Radio hotline, 909-345-3346. That's 909-345-3346. Don't forget Murf's Fan Cave on the YouTube, where you can get all the show links like the Fan Club Blitz with Splatterhead and Fitz. Find all our stuff on podcast providers like Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play. All right, did I hit the time limit? Good.
All right, Raider Nation. So this is episode number 99 here on Raiders Fan Radio. Thanks for Wilson and Little Murf sitting over there, joining us here on the show. Let's see. Dirty says in the chat, I got to show you something. Bo Jackson behind you. I don't have anything Bo Jackson in the collection. I do have some Los Angeles Raiders stuff, but nothing specific to Bo Jackson. I do have Bo Jackson jersey, but that's downstairs. But anyways, and appreciate the kind words. Appreciate you, Julian. Appreciate everybody again. Join us, and I'm gonna spend a lot more time. I might have said this already, but I'm gonna try to spend more time on the chat and reading the chat. And so, which normally it's tougher with Uncle Mosh, and so maybe here with a solo show, I'll be able to do that more. And again, more of you and less of me is a good thing here. So, all right. So episode number 99, we always celebrate a player or something significant in relation to the number 99 in terms of our show and in terms of Raider Nation. And so, a lot of times it ends up being a jersey number because that's typically the best one-to-one kind of correlation. But sometimes we'll go off the board, and sometimes we'll pick a year like we have the past couple of weeks with number 97 and number 98. Well, and this week I decided to do something similar as well. I decided to go with the number 99, but not in terms of a player and not even in terms of a year. I decided to go in terms of distance and in terms of 99 yards. And here's why. So there's been some significant players that have worn the number 99 over the years. There's Sean Jones, if you remember. Sean, we're winding the clock back a little bit. Well, of course, and all these guys are pretty much defensive linemen. Had some good years with the Raiders, but mainly Sean Jones was more recognized for being a Packer and winning that Super Bowl against the Patriots, then led by Drew Bledsoe, if you remember them. But Sean Jones, it was a pretty good defensive lineman, but really flourished on that line with Reggie White. Everybody in the world was doubling Reggie White. So Sean Jones had a pretty good career there. Then, of course, number 99, Warren Sapp. I know, I see you, Julian, not Sapp, and that's what I'm not. Sapp to me is not a Raider. He wore the silver and black, but I know once a Raider, always a Raider. I know all that, but he hated on the Raiders. Anybody that kind of hates on the Raiders, anybody that's bitter back towards the organization, I tend to kind of write them off. So I'm not going to count Sapp. I'm not going to count Aldon Smith. Aldon Smith is a sad story. I'm all about a redemption story, and we are here on the show, and I hope this young man gets his life together first and foremost. I think football has kind of passed him by at this point, but, what a talent, man. What an absolute talent, and he could have been the guy we would honor here on this show, and we're in the number 99. Man, just a kind of a sad deal there, but anyway, so that's why we didn't name it. Then Arden Key, where's number 99? I'm rooting for him. We're all rooting for him, right? We all want him to be great, but not quite there yet. And then, so in terms of the year 99, well, heck, we spent the whole offseason, for those of you that listen to the show, we spent the whole offseason listening to the Commitment to Excellence CD that reviewed the entire 1999 season. So here I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, all these 99s, none of them really work. Well, then I remembered something that I learned actually on doing the Mondays with Mikey and Murf show. Now, so Mikey a lot of times will ask me questions. He'll ask me like Raiders trivia questions. And one of the Raiders trivia questions was, what was the longest play from scrimmage in the entirety of Raider history? And I said the Terrell Pryor run, because that was 93 or 97. I forget. Not yards from scrimmage. Now that's the longest run in Raiders history, but the longest play in Raiders history is a 99-yard pass play, and that was from Jim Plunkett to Cliff Branch in 1983 when they were playing the Washington Redskins, the same team we would then go on to beat in the Super Bowl on Black Sunday. But during the regular season, the two teams played, and here's what it sounded like when Jim Plunkett it was a 34-yard pass, and then 35-yard pass, and then Branch took it the rest of the 64 yards into the end zone.
Play fake, Plunkett back, going, way up the field, Branch plenty of room, makes the catch at the 35, the 50, the 40, the 30, he's going all the way, 99 yards, touchdown Raiders, holy Toledo.
All right, there you go. So celebrate the 1983/84 Raiders with the last time we won a Super Bowl championship and that 99-yard play from Jim Plunkett to Cliff Branch. So pretty cool stuff there. It's always good to hear Bill King, man, calling out the Raiders, man. I just love that. So anyway, so we're going to get to today. We're going to get to the 4-minute offense. I'm still going to do that. That'll be interesting. And then we're going to do kind of a funny little segment. I'm going to call it "It's Not Your Fault." And then we're going to do 3 reasons, and not necessarily a back and forth, obviously, and it's a bye week. So I'm going to do 3 reasons why it's a good thing that we're on the bye week. Then we're going to feature the Sea of Fans, which is going to be the majority of the show, is listening to your emails, listening to your voicemails. And I'm going to read a couple of your emails. And then we're going to finish off with the winner of our tagline contest and an interview. I have an interview this week with Johnny Spencer. For those of you that don't know who he is a drummer for the punk rock band Stringer. You can find Stringer on Bandcamp. You can find them on iTunes. And they have a great video out for their song Ghosts. And so check them out if you like punk rock, if you like the Hives, any of that kind of punk rock. These guys are great, man. And so anyways, Johnny is he's from Oakland. They're a New York-based band, but he's originally from Oakland. He's an A's fan. He's a Raiders fan. And so we had him on the show and had a pretty fun interview talking some rock and roll and talking some A's baseball and Raiders football. So hope you guys will enjoy that interview. And that will come up at the very end. So when I get to the end of the episode, I'm just going to play that interview on out, and then we'll be on from there. So anyway, so without further ado, let's go ahead and we'll get to the 4-minute offense here in just a sec.
We have a go for main engine start. And we have main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery.
Hello, I'm astronaut Jose Hernandez, and you're listening to Raiders Fan Radio.
Just reading the chat there, a couple things. I didn't have Bruce Irvin on our list of things to talk about, but let's go ahead and address it since the chat's in there talking about it. You guys are talking about how his moves aren't there like they used to be. He's never gotten over the Mac trade. He's quit on the team, doesn't act like a captain. Man, I agree with all that stuff. And I agree with all those sentiments. Pretty disappointing. I think he's the most disappointed I've been in a Raiders player in a long time, because I thought the whole prospect of him, returning to being a pure pass rusher and all that stuff that we were sold in the offseason has none of that's come to fruition. And I understand that his feelings were hurt because of the Mac trade, but you're a pro. You got to move on. And also, this was the time for him to step up and be the man. And isn't that kind of what you want to be? Don't you want to be the man on defense? Don't you want to be the one that everyone's talking about? Don't you want to be the one with all the stats? Don't you want to be the leader of the team on defense? Because clearly there isn't one now, or at least not anyone that really jumps out. Taylor Whitehead is doing a pretty good job, but he hasn't really established himself as a strong leader yet. I thought Bruce was going to be that guy. And sure enough, not only with his play on the field, where he basically disappears on the stat sheet, taking these wide angles to the quarterback where he takes himself out of the play. And then of course the comments about, not wanting to what did he say? I'm paraphrasing, but basically it was like, I got a wife to go home to. I got other things to worry about. I'm just going to, worry about this while I'm clocked in. Well, it's pretty disappointing, right? I mean, it is disappointing. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think Bruce Irvin is going to be part of this team going forward. He's certainly not going to be part of the long-term plan. Something else that happened also this week, as I mentioned, I didn't mention it. I'm going to mention it now. You've mentioned it. Derek Johnson has been released, making room for Jason Kabinda. And, that's going to be, hey man, play the young guys. I did have that on my list of things to talk about. Play the young guys. When you're 1-5, who wants to see Derek Johnson? No, play the young men, right? That's who we want to see. We want to see Nick Nelson. We want to see Morrow. We want to see those guys. Let those guys get in there and get some playing time. And so hopefully that's really where it's going, where it's headed. All right, so let's go ahead and do the 4-minute offense, and I will go ahead and hit the timer, and here we go. All right, one of the big stories that came out this week is the Raiders are shopping Amari Cooper, and they're rumored to be shopping him for a first-round pick. All right, so here's kind of my take on it. There's a difference between shopping and listening to and entertaining offers. Now, so what the difference is, and I know you can get kind of caught up in semantics at times, but there is a big difference between the Raiders calling other organizations and saying, hey, we got Amari Cooper on the table, what would you give us for him, versus other people understanding that maybe it's not working out, maybe there's for whatever reason, he's not all in for the organization, and other GMs are calling the Raiders and saying, hey, what do you want for Amari Cooper? All right, so what the Raiders are not, quote, shopping him, but if somebody calls Reggie McKenzie and says, what do you want for Coop? And he says, I'll take a first. Well, they're not shopping him for a first, but they'll take a first for him. And you know what? I'm all about it. And I said it back with the Mac deal. If you can get that kind of value exchange, and that's probably backfired a little bit, but still, point being, if you can get value of like first round level for Amari Cooper, let him go. And if you want to draw a little bit of a contrast to understand why I say that, since 2016, Devontae Adams has scored 28 touchdowns. That was Derek Carr's teammate in Fresno State, and he catches from one of the best, Aaron Rodgers. But Amari Cooper has 13. Okay, 13 touchdowns versus 28 to a guy that should be of a similar skill set. So I don't know. For whatever reason, Amari's not in, and so I'd say take the value if you can get it. All right, everyone's on the trading block, including Derek Carr. Some reports came out that the Raiders are willing to move anyone. I don't know if I buy into that entirely. I think that the hardest thing to find in the NFL is a franchise quarterback, and you're not going to part with one when you find him, and certainly when you've already committed the dollars to him that you have. Now, is it possible that could they send him to the Giants? Could they send him to some other, the Jacksonville Jaguar? Well, sure, anything's possible, but I don't think that one's likely. I mean, when you trade your best defensive player and you trade somebody that's an all-world player like Mac, I think that all bets are off and everyone's susceptible. But if you think about that Patriots model, which I refer to all the time, and I know a lot of times you guys don't like it, but point is, though, the Patriots model is you keep the dang franchise quarterback and then you build around him. And then the last thing, part of that too, is that if you move Carr, then you got to bring in a cheap quarterback. And if your plan was to bring in a cheap quarterback, then why'd you let Mac go to begin with, right? So anyways, all right, I got to get moving here. So Niners and Raiders both start 1-5 for the first time ever. The only other times that since 1940 that two teams in the same market started 1-5 or worse are 1945 and 53, the Chicago Bears and the Chicago Cardinals, which shared the city of Chicago back then. They both started 1-5. And then the Super Bowl era, We have in 1974, 1976, and in 1980, the Jets and Giants both started 1-5. So one of these teams is going to go to 1-6. The other one's going to go to 2-5. It just isn't a ton better, but Lord have mercy. For now, I thought the Battle of the Bay was going to have a lot more ramifications to it this year than this, especially since it's going to be the last one. I didn't think it was going to be to see who the worst or the lesser of the teams were. All right, and then the last one I got, and I put this last because I'm hoping the bells are going to cut me off. I know you're frustrated, Raider Nation. I'm frustrated. We're all frustrated. But some of the stuff that I'm hearing nowadays and some of the stuff that I'm reading on social media, I'm going to include myself, got to slow our rolls, man. I'm hearing talk about, we were so great with Bill Musgrave. Okay, now you're pining the loss of Bill Musgrave. No one was pining the loss of Bill Musgrave when he got fired. We should have never got rid of Hugh Jackson. Really? The guy that proclaimed himself the leader of the organization? Listen, guys, we can't. It's going to get me.
And they'll run out of time. And it costs.
Well, it's a rookie mistake. But right here, he's got to go down.
All right, well, I'm going to finish my thought because it's my show, and there's no one else for cut me off. So how about that? So, look, there's nothing wrong with being frustrated. There's nothing wrong with being critical of the organization. There's nothing wrong with being mad. There's nothing wrong with any of that kind of stuff. What I don't think is appropriate is when we adjust what history was to further fit our story, okay? Hugh Jackson was gone because he proclaimed himself the king of the Raiders and made a moronic trade for Carson Palmer. He was gone, okay? There was no retaining him. So it wasn't so let's not act like everything was all great back then and like we made a grave mistake by letting him go in the wake of Al Davis's passing away. Same thing with Bill Musgrave. You think you're frustrated with checkdowns and short passes now? Don't forget what it was like back then. Everyone wanted to run Musgrave out of town because they thought that he was hampering our offense and he was handcuffing us. So let's not adjust it. Okay. And then the other one I read was that the Raiders made a choice between Gabe Jackson and Khalil Mack. Come on. Really? You think that really was a 1-to-1? You think they really chose and had these two guys and their contracts on the table and said, okay, well, we're going to pay one and not the other. So let's pay Gabe Jackson. Now, look, did it work out that way? Yes, it clearly did. But to make the assumption or to make the accusation that this was a conscious effort, that the Raiders made this kind of move as one over the other, don't do that. Don't adjust history to fit your story. Have your story, have your opinion, knock yourself out. No one's going to hate on you for that, but don't change you know what I mean? Don't change the narrative just because it fits your opinion better. And then the last thing I'll say is this in terms of the criticism. And look, and I'm critical of this team too. I'm going to be critical tonight. I'm going to apologize for some stuff tonight, but I'm critical of the team as well at times. Remember this. It's easy to be critical. Everybody can be critical because only one team wins a championship. So 31 teams' critics are proven right every single year. So just remember that at the end of the day, only one team wins the Super Bowl. So only one person or one group of fans is proven right in their criticism. Now, being that we haven't won the Super Bowl since 1983, that's made every single one of us right for everything we've ever said has been wrong with the Raiders since 1983. That makes sense? So it's easy. So what my encouragement is this. What I would submit to you, Raider Nation, is this. Instead of being critical of what's going on now, try to embrace what they're trying to do. Try to instead have an understanding of where this thing is going. So when you guys, or not you guys, not most of our listeners, but I hear it from other social media sites and on Mondays with Mikey and Murf, I'm not apologizing for what's going on. I'm not excusing, I'm not accepting, I'm not condoning nor liking where we're at in terms of performance. But what I am trying to do is figure out what's going on. I'm trying to understand where we're going. I'm trying to make sense of why we do what we do. That's all. That's all it is. So when you're out there, Raider Nation, just remember, be critical, do all that stuff, but just try to seek like a greater understanding of maybe what's going on.
This is Andrew DePaula, long snapper with the Oakland Raiders. You're listening to Murf with Raiders Fan Radio. Just win, baby.
All right, let's hop back in the chat there. A couple things, man, talking about Aaron Rodgers the other night. That's one of my man crushes, man, outside of anybody that wears a Raider uniform. Man, Aaron Rodgers, unbelievable. And of course, and he's a Chico guy, where I would say I went to school at Chico. I was at Chico. I was at Chico with some friends, and there was a lot more schooling going on than what I ever did. But I was at and around Chico, and actually went to Butte for a little while, which is where Aaron Rodgers played. So anyways, going back to all that, I've just been a fan of his coming up. And look, if you're an NFL fan, you can't not like the way the guy plays quarterback, because he's playing it better than anybody in the league right now, right? Like, he's the elite of the elite. So pretty cool stuff. So I'm with you guys, and that clearly is the reason why Davante Adams is putting up a lot of the numbers that he is. And and then bring it back to the Raiders. When you watch Derek Carr a lot of times, not so much this year, really not so much since he's taken on some of the big injuries, but earlier on in his times when he was really on point, he kind of looked like a little Aaron Rodgers, right? Like he had that kind of lateral movement in the pocket, that escapability, that accuracy on the run, kind of willing to take off and go a little bit. There's that famous picture of Derek Carr at Fresno State, man, jumping over the goal line into the end zone, and he's like, 8 feet in the air, man. So, a lot of tendencies, a lot of similar traits there. I don't know if we'll see that fully emerge in a John Gruden offense, but absolutely, he's got some of those similar talents. All right, so speaking of Derek Carr, okay. This is my fun little segment here. I'm just going to call it, It's Not Your Fault, okay? It's a lot of people's fault. And it's Derek Carr's fault a lot of times because of the things that he's choosing to do on, like, say, 1st and 10 when he's thrown 5 interceptions, right? He's made some bad decisions. But for the most part, it's really not his fault. It's really a lot more going on with the organization, and there are some gaping holes on this team, much more so than what quarterback is. So this is my little apology. And the ones that accuse me of being a Derek Carr shoe licker I heard this week. Oh, that was a fun one. You're really going to love this one, because this week I'm saying, Derek Carr, it's not your fault.
You want to talk about it? No. I don't know a lot. You see this? All of it. It's not your fault. Yeah, I know that. Look at me, son. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know. No, you don't. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. All right? It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Don't. It's not your fault. Don't fuck with me, all right? Don't put me on, not you. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Oh my God! Oh my God! I'm so sorry.
So there was Derek Carr and John Gruden post game in Seattle. Right? It's from the movie Good Will Hunting, and I just kept thinking of that, man. I just kept thinking, Derek, it's not your fault. And here's why. All right, so here's why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. All right. There's a lot of and again, I'm not excusing the things that Derek Carr's done bad. And I've been the first one to criticize him on, whether it's the interception on 1st and goal to go. There's been a lot of the things that he's done. Any of those times that he's thrown those interceptions on after getting a first down, they're drive killers, the momentum killers, they're morale killers. It's just bad news, man, for Derek Carr to throw those picks. Okay. But that aside, and I know that's a big that aside, I get it. When you look at actually, though, what he's dealing with this year, it's actually a lot better off than what it may seem, okay? And so there's this narrative, these stories being pushed out there about how bad he is. Well, and one of those guys there's this PFT guy this week, and I hesitate to say his name, but I'll say it in case you guys want to check me on it. His name is Josh Norris, okay? And Josh Norris put out a passing chart from the Seattle game. And he puts up the passing chart, and it looks ugly because there's all these little dink and dunk short completions. And he writes on there, "This is the ugliest passing chart I can remember seeing." Something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. When you just look at that passing chart in a vacuum, it looks bad. And you think, well, Derek Carr's playing bad. But when you look at if you watched the game, Josh Norris, and you see what the guy was dealing with all game long, you would know that that's an incredibly fair passing chart for what he was having to deal with. So here comes Gypsy Safety, one of my favorite follows on Twitter. It's GIPSY Safety. If you don't follow him on Twitter, follow him on Twitter. Dude is a champ when it comes to breaking down film. Ted Wynn, there's, Baldinger, there's a handful of people I like. Specifically Raider tape, though, is Gypsy Safety. So follow him on Twitter. Gypsy Safety put out a tweet, and he showed 31 pass attempts versus Seattle, and he isolated 16 dropbacks, okay? I said last week, Uncle Mosh and I, during the game, we were actually timing, and we were timing how much time Derek Carr had on his dropbacks. Of course, ours was unofficial and, not scientific, where Gypsy Safety digs into it and he breaks it down all the way. And in 16 dropbacks last week, he had less than 3 seconds before pressure got to him, and 7 of those 16, he had less than 2 seconds. Less than 2 seconds. Now look, is that his fault? No, it's not his fault. It's also not Rodney Hudson's fault, because Rodney Hudson has not allowed one single pressure all year long. Out of the whole offensive line, not one single pressure. I still to this day say that's the best free agent signing that Reggie McKenzie has ever made, was Rodney Hudson. And not only did we get him away from Kansas City, but we brought him to Oakland. And hopefully he's going to be our center for many, many years to come. He's only 29 years old. Centers, man, they'll play till they're like 35, right? Or even older. It's not those guys' fault. Hudson and Carr are playing well. The rest of the offensive line is trash. And when you look, Mongo Feliciano, man, dude's on skates when he's in there. Now he's hurt, right? And so Gabe Jackson, as well as he's done, even he struggled a little bit. And of course he's going to struggle because they're attacking the 2 rookie tackles. And they're attacking the 2 rookie tackles, especially Colt Miller, because he's hurt. And Colton and Kelechi Osemele, who's normally on that side to help him out, isn't able to come over and slide over to help him out. So the young guy's out there all by himself. Look, we're struggling on the offensive line. That is not Derek Carr's fault. It's just not his fault. Again, all criticism is fair, and until they win the Super Bowl, everyone is going to be right in the ones that criticize them. But I think when you really break it down, when you really look at the numbers and you really watch the game and you kind of see what duress the guy's under, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, Joe Montana. It doesn't matter who you are. When you're under that kind of pressure, that quick, even in today's NFL, man, it's really, really tough to get the passing game going. All right, so here's something else I want to play for you, just to kind of back up my points a little bit. There's a couple of guys that, talked about this stuff. And, Rob Ryan, former defensive coordinator for our Oakland Raiders for like 5 years, or at least with the organization for 5 years. He spoke out on Derek Carr and John Gruden's Raiders, and here's what his thoughts were on it.
I think they've been a lot of close games, and that's a good sign. I think that's a good sign. Look, they stink on defense, my opinion, my humble opinion. They can't stop a run or a pass. But that offense is legit. He's getting the best out of these guys. Look, Carr's had some interceptions. Once he starts settling down in the West Coast offense again, remember, he was an MVP candidate the last time he was in this system. He's going to get better and better as the season goes. That Cook looks phenomenal. Cooper's coming on, and Jordy Nelson. Look, they're going to be there. It's just they got to get the defense turned around. But look, I love the Raiders. I coached there for 5 years. I love that, everybody loves or hates the Raiders.
Right, it's one of those iconic teams.
But I love, and Mark Davis taking over for his father, his team. I mean, that's cool. And I just think they did the right thing. They went out to get a great coach. So, and they got him. And is it tough on some people? Yeah, but that's old coaches, man. They're tough. They're going to make you better. Whether you want to or not, they're going to make you better. And look, you could argue with the he misplayed the Khalil Mack. I agree. He did misplay that. There's no question about it. But teams lose players during the year. And you just kind of look at, wait, we lost him. It could have been an injury, could have been anything. Go forward. You've got 2 first-round picks coming in the future, but right now is your future. Get in here and make it. Because, look, the Chargers almost made the playoffs last year, gotten off to 0-4
turn it
start.
around,
Yeah, and they can. And I think they will. I think they can definitely do it, because there's no way this defense play this poorly all year.
All right, there's Rob Ryan, former defensive coordinator for the Oakland Raiders. And see, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, man. He makes a great point about how Carr is now back in the West Coast offense and what the West Coast offense is going to look like. So here's some more data I'm going to throw to you, okay, Raider Nation? And this is what I'm talking about. So when people are rallying, oh, Derek Carr sucks, okay, keep this stuff in mind, okay, because that's easy to say. Everybody can say 1 in 5 sucks. John Gruden sucks. Mark Davis sucks. Derek Carr sucks. That's easy. What's hard is to figure out why we're doing what we're doing and what maybe the plan is. Again, that seeking understanding. Okay. So here's what we know for sure about Derek Carr. He is second in the league in completion percentage. You know who's number 1? Drew Brees. All right. Other than that, Derek Carr has the highest completion percentage in all of the NFL. You know who rounds out the top 10? Kirk Cousins, Mitch Trubisky, Matt Ryan, Jared Goff, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and Tom Brady. Did you count those Super Bowl rings? There's about 9, 10 of them in there, wasn't there? That's a lot of Super Bowl rings that Derek Carr is in company with. That's in terms of completion percentage. And then, then those of you those not necessarily you listening to the show, thank you, Raider Vic. That's exactly where I'm going. Oh, but they're short passes. Okay. His average yardage per completion, okay, is 7.7. You know what Drew Brees is? 8.7. You know what Kirk Cousins is? 7.4. It's lower than Carr. You know, Trubisky, 7.8, 0.1 higher than Carr. Eli Manning, 7.2. Carson Wentz, 7.5, lower than Carr. Tom Brady, the GOAT, right? 7.5, lower than Carr. So when you look at the numbers, do the numbers tell us that Derek Carr is a trash quarterback? No. Is he making some bad decisions? Yes. Does that make him not a franchise quarterback? No. In fact, it makes him a pretty dang good one. And when you look at completions, he's 4th in the league. He's 7th in attempts. He's 2nd, as I mentioned, in completion percentage. He's 10th in yards. And then here's where it drops off. He's 23rd in touchdowns because they don't have the red zone capabilities that they did once upon a time. Because Crabtree was the guy, right? And we don't have anybody else that stepped in. Clearly it has. Amari Cooper's never really been that. Jordy, for whatever reason, hasn't been that. I thought Jared Cook would be more so that. And I even thought Martavis Bryant would be a guy that we could hit on maybe some fades and whatnot, a high point the ball in the end zone, but that hasn't worked out. So that's where he drops off, okay? And then in interceptions, that's where he drops off. And this is what I'm talking about. He's 3rd in interceptions. Okay, he's 3rd. So that's not good. That means that he's in the top 3 for interceptions thrown. That's not good because, again, he's making those bad decisions. But the overall, it's not bad. And here's why, because it's the West Coast offense. And if we look at a previous MVP, not only caliber, but MVP winning quarterback for our Oakland Raiders in John Gruden's West Coast offense, the last time Rich Gannon played in that offense, he won MVP in 2002, but if you remember, that's when Gruden was gone. We're talking about the year prior to that when John Gruden was still there. So this is the Tuck Rule year, all right? His completion percentage, 65.8, not as high as Derek Carr. He threw for 3,800 yards, which Carr is on pace to get pretty dang close to that. His yards per average per attempt, 7. It's 0.3 higher, 0.3 per attempt. So it's really, this is what the system is. Look, and I'm frustrated with it too. I promise you guys. I don't like it either. I don't like the dump passes to Jalen Richard. When I see Jalen Richard and Jared Cook on the field at the same time, we all know it's going to one of them, right? I get it, man. I don't like it either. But when you look at the numbers, that's what Gruden's offense does. And guess what? This was one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL, enough to generate an MVP quarterback. So this is why I'm patient. This is why I'm willing to see how this stuff plays out. Do I like it where we're at? No, but this is not the reason why. So call me a shoe licker, call me an apologist, call me all these things. That's fine. I'll own it all day long because 3-4 years from now, when we're winning championships or we have a minimum of proficient offense, then I'll be the one smiling and I'll be watching you adjusting your stories, to accommodate what you want the new narrative to be, right?
You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio with the real star of the show, Little Murf, and my sidekick, Uncle Mosh. There used to be a third guy too, but I kick him out.
All right, so 3 reasons. So the 3 reasons segment here on Raiders Fan Radio, this is where we go over 3 reasons that the Raiders will win and 3 reasons that the other team is going to lose. But as you know, it's just me today, so I'm just going to give you 3 reasons why it's a good time for the bye week.
Give me one reason why I should listen to you.
Give me one.
good reason. Give me one good reason why I...
So you give me one good reason.
Give me one good reason.
Give me one good reason. Give me one good reason.
Why don't you give me one reason?
3 reasons.
3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. It's always 3, 3, 3. It's always the same.
I can think of 3 real good reasons.
3 reasons.
Top 3? Top 3.
All right, thanks again, guys, for joining me here for this solo flight through Raiders Fan Radio. I appreciate you sticking in there. Appreciate Chevy Raider, Running Bear, Kings Only, Raider Vic, Master Chief. I can't scroll up to see everybody, but appreciate you hopping in here. Let's read a few of these. So Running Bear, last couple years, most were his average yards and yards a game. They were low, needs a better completion percentage. He does all that, and he's still not happy. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, we're getting what we should out of him, but again, it's just some of the bad decisions. And I see there was someone else had brought mention of that it was something about you just got to win, and that's all that counts. And that's where absolutely you're dead on. And that's where, as much as I just got done kind of defending Carr, those passes on 1st and 10, those interceptions in the end zone, you can't do that. That loses football games. It doesn't matter what you do between the 20s. What matters is when you get the ball in the end zone and put points on the board, right? Especially when we got Matt McCrane, the 115-pound kicker. Like, I mean, look, we need to put the ball in the end zone. That's got to, that's got to be a priority. And obviously it's a priority for them, but it's got to happen, man. We've got to make that happen. The Raiders got to figure out a way to make that go. Quit with the cute stuff, right? Like, there's a lot of things that we can do and a lot of things, again, that could be critical of, and you all are absolutely right. So we got to get those wins up there on the board. All right, so 3 reasons. 3 reasons why the bye week is coming in a perfect time. First and foremost, it's going to give the team a break, and they're going to get a chance to get healthy. And I think that there is an opportunity for us to get physically healthy, and there's an opportunity for us to get mentally healthy. When you're dealing with the adversity that you're dealing with, and you get beat up physically like the Raiders did in London, and you're embarrassed in front of an international crowd, it's a good time to take a break. Now, it's never you never want to go into the bye week on a loss because then you get that long to think about it. But I think it's a kind of a good time for the Raiders, for the players to kind of sit on some things. You know, this is a good time for somebody like Bruce Irvin, right? It's a good time. Like, you better figure out what you're going to do, right? It's a good time for guys like Osemele to get healthy. It's a good time for Carr to get healthy. It's a good time for guys that have been dinged up. Heck, Marshawn now, they're talking about has a groin pull. It's a good time for him to get healthy, right? So I think that's a good thing. So mentally and physically, I think it's a good thing for the Raiders that they can get healthy. Reason number 2, here's one for us. We can all get at peace with our feelings. We can all, because we're all in our feelings, Raider Nation. All of us. Me, you, the chat room, See You Fans mailbag, we're all up in our feelings because we're all pissed that the Raiders are 1-5. Okay? Well, now we can finally come to peace, and we can now take comfort in the idea that we're not going to the Super Bowl. Okay? Because we're not going to the Super Bowl. As co-host of the Fan Club Blitz, Chuck McCann famously said on a call to our show last year, you know, fellas, I'm starting to think the Raiders aren't going to the Super Bowl. Well, that's where we're at. The Raiders are not going to the Super Bowl, okay? So let's deal with that. Let's process that. Let's process the idea that, look, Mark Davis is going to own the football team. John Gruden is going to be your head coach. And Derek Carr is going to be your quarterback. Only 2 things in life are certain, that's death and taxes, but I'm pretty comfortable with those other 3 as well. That those 3 guys are going to be around for a long time. So the quicker you can get to peace with that, the quicker you can move on to something else and enjoy more of what we have in the remainder of this season. Because look, as bad as this all is, at least it's football season, right? At least we get to watch the Raiders every week, right? We got 10 weeks left, right, of Raiders football. So that's something to be excited about, right? Because think about what you feel like in June when it sucks in July and there's no Raiders football. So at least we got it. It may not be the Raiders football we want to watch, but it's the Raiders football we got. So the quicker we can kind of come to terms with that, probably the better off we're going to be as fans. And then the last reason that I'm glad, and I think it's a good, the last reason that this is a good week for the bye week is that now the team can make some roster moves. Now, not only are we coming to terms with the idea that the Raiders are not going to the Super Bowl, but so are they. And now I know they're not giving up. And I know that, they're going to play to win and the effort is still good and all that's fair. But the idea that you got to kind of win out to make the playoffs, at a minimum, you got one more game to lose. I mean, it's not looking good. So if you're going to play young guys, now's the time, right? So now's the time to let Derek Johnson go and to bring up Kabinda. Now's the time to get Nick Nelson in the game. Carl Joseph is another one that's going to get healthy. I forgot to mention him earlier. So maybe now's the time we get a little more playing time if they don't trade him. But that's the idea is that now they'll have a chance to really kind of make some moves. And now here, speaking of roster moves, there's something else I want to touch on. There's been a lot of criticism about who's getting playing time and who's not. Carl Joseph is one. Gary Conley is one. Rashawn Melvin now is kind of getting in his feelings and having some Twitter reports out there on himself that John Gruden addressed. And there are some specific reasons for that. Now, we as fans and with our eyes watching the game, and we're seeing like, oh, it doesn't look that bad. Why isn't the younger guys getting playing time? Well, there's a lot to be said for getting players into your scheme. You really got to do one of two things in the NFL, really in all sports. You got to either build a scheme, you get personnel to fit into your scheme, or you build a scheme based on the personnel that you have. Clearly, the Raiders are not going to build a scheme around the players that they have. Clearly, Paul Guenther, this isn't even a Gruden thing. Clearly, Paul Guenther is not going to build his defensive scheme around the players that were there. He wants to bring in other players to fit into his scheme. Now, that's fair, but that takes time. When you adjust the scheme to the players, you have more of an immediate impact. When you got to build the players into the scheme, it takes longer because you got to acquire them, right? So the criticism of like, well, why isn't Conley get more time, or why isn't this person or that person get more time? Well, it's because they don't fit the scheme as well as maybe somebody else does. Now, while I am a firm believer of if you're going to lose with the young guys because get them the experience, but there is a lot to be said for getting those players into the best positions possible to be successful based on what your scheme is. And here's one example. I'm just going to give you one example. And this is the stuff that you don't hear about on First Take. This is the stuff that you don't hear about on the hoot and holler shows with the where they do the whatever, their little countdown windows and all that kind of stuff. Those are the shows that everybody just goes, John Gruden sucks. Paul Guenther sucks. Well, that's easy. Well, what they don't tell you on those things is that there's some very specific things in a Paul Guenther defense that your defensive backs, as an example, have to do. And one of the things that they have to do is called motor coverage, okay, or motor man coverage even. And this is what Rashawn Melvin, when he spoke out against the team and said that, he felt like he was misapplied or he needed to get back to doing things the way he used to do. This is what he's talking about. Basically, they're trying to coach him into doing something new, and it's not working out for him, and he's rejecting it. Well, this motor man coverage, what it is that basically you get up and it's a man scheme. So you're playing the man, okay? And you're getting right up close and you're putting your eyes on his belt buckle, all right? And when at the snap of the ball, you're going to shuffle back about a half a foot and your feet are never really going to leave the turf. Watch the Raiders defensive backs. They don't really lift their feet that high. They kind of shuffle it across the top of the grass and they mirror what the guy in front of them is doing. So that shuffle backwards, that's the motor, right? And then they mirror what the receiver does versus like bump and run man coverage where I come up, I hit you, right? And then I try to redirect you or I get an arm on you, you try to do that. This motor coverage is a mirror of what the guy in front of you is doing. Well, Rashawn Melvin isn't that great at that. Worley is very good at that. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie is really good at that. Gary Conley is still kind of improving whether he's good at that or not. So this is the kind of stuff that we got to understand, that they're looking for players to fit exactly what the defense wants them to do based on what their schemes are. And that takes time. The team can make moves. I'll go back all the way around full circle. The third reason that I'm glad that we're on top of the bye week is that now the team can start making moves. We've resided in the idea that we're not going to the Super Bowl. And so now maybe we can find some players to continue to plug into these schemes. And then hopefully we can move this thing in a positive direction. All right. Next up, let's get to the Sea of Fans. This is the best part of the show. Thank you again for joining us. Thanks for listening to me talk Let's see. Let's do a couple of chats here before we move on to the next segment. Dirty says, I got to get something Bo Jackson behind me. I'm with you, man. I'll tell you what, I'll put the, I have a Marcus Allen jersey hanging over on that chair. I'll put a Bo Jackson jersey on that, so you can check that out. Let's see. Kings Only says, Arden Key reminds me of Mac's rookie year. He gets inches from the QB, but doesn't get it. He will come with time. Dude, I'm with you. Thank you for saying that. That is a fantastic point. There's been a lot of near misses or near hits for Arden Key this year. I think he's coming. I think 99 is coming. I think that obviously Mo Hurst has already kind of arrived, but I think there's going to be a lot of fun things in store for us on the defensive line. Another one, Master Chief, do you think Carr's playing scared? I don't know. That's a tough one. I would say that it's hard to say no to that, because when you're that beat up, we all forgot about the pinky because he broke his leg, and then we forgot about the broken leg because he broke his back. Those were some pretty significant injuries that were kind of stacked up on top of each other. And here's what I do know is that it doesn't matter if you're Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, any of those guys. When they get hit, they get shook. And when they get shook, they get happy feet. And when happy feet happens, it's never a good thing. And there's only a handful of quarterbacks that can deal with that type of pressure relentlessly. And it's people like Russell Wilson, right? You think about guys like that. Russell doesn't really get shook, and it's because he's got that he's just so fleet of feet, right? He's just so mobile. He never really takes like a good shot. You never see, Russell Wilson get blown up because he's just so fluid, right? So aside from guys like that, you hit them, they get shook up. That's the whole point, right? Al Davis theory. Quarterback must go down. He must go down hard because it takes them out of their game. So it's certainly a fair criticism there. All right, one more. Let's see. Running Bear says, tell me one team that changes offensive, defensive schemes every year and wins. That's another great point. And here's another reason why you guys are probably sick of hearing me say that I'm willing to be patient. But this is why I'm willing to be patient, man, because it takes time. And how many offensive coordinators have we had now? I don't even know. I'll lose track. How many defensive coordinators have we had now? Jason Tarver and, Ken Norton Jr. and now Paul Gunther. And it's been a lot. So I'm with you. Eventually we got to settle in on some consistency, because that's where typically winning will happen. All right, let's go ahead and move on. I'm sick of hearing me talk. I'm sure you are too. Let's go ahead and dip in to the Sea of Fans mailbag. Unless Wilson, you got anything? Well, Murf, you got anything?
You said this was a fan cave. It looks more like your spare room.
All right, let's go to the Sea of Fans.
He is baiting, looking. He's under the gun. He's tied. He throws. It is.
He caught it.
All right, the Sea of Fans mailbag is where we hear from you, Raider Nation. You can call us at any time at 909-345-3346. That's 909-345-3346. Give us a call here on Raiders Fan Radio. That's right, taking your calls. I'm sorry, that was stupid. Yeah, so we'll take your calls. You can call us 24/7 and leave us a message as long as you get the message in before Wednesday. Typically, that will make the show. We get a lot of voicemails during the season, and love every single one of them. You guys are great, and so definitely keep them coming. And if we feature your voicemail 3 times on the show, then you become what we call a made man, and it's our way of honoring you and thanking you for being a part of Raiders Fan Radio and Raider Nation. And so we have a lot of voicemails, and I also have a couple emails to get to. Let's do the voicemails first. Give my voice a little bit of a break here. Let's listen to Steve in Houston.
Hello, Murf and Moss. This is Houston Raiders Steve. Thanks for the condolences about my mom. I really appreciate it. My call today is about the famous game, November 30th, 1987. Bo Jackson is only his 5th game as a Raider, Los Angeles Raider. They went up against the Seattle Seahawks in the Kingdome in Seattle. And Bo Jackson, when he arrived with the Raiders, he told Marcus Allen and Jim Plunkett, the team, that he was the new sheriff in town. He also had a quote that's saying, whatever happens after baseball season, it's just a hobby. Anyway, in that game, everybody remembers that 91-yard run where Bo Jackson takes off and he gets stronger and he runs all the way down, runs into the tunnel. We thought he ran out of his shoes and out of the stadium. It was unbelievable. I've never seen anybody that explosive. As the game went on, he ended up having 221 yards in that game. And one of the other ones that, of course, everybody remembers is Brian Bosworth was always talking smack all the time, saying he's the greatest. Bo Jackson went right through him like a hot knife through butter on that play, and just ran right through him. Kenny Easley had a chance. That Pro Football Hall of Famer out of UCLA had a chance to get him, but didn't have the angle. But I just remember that night. I was at a restaurant, and I was just blown away by how powerful and how strong this guy was. And I can also remember when he hurt himself in that game against Cincinnati that ended his career. A player by the name of Walker for Bengals grabbed him and ended up having a hip replacement. But it was really sad and everything because actually after he got hurt in that game, Marcus Allen went in and had a great game and helped them win that game against Cincinnati. But I also remember the rivalry between the Seahawks. Back in 1983, they played him in the AFC Championship. The Raiders won 30-14, I believe. But that was a huge rivalry. Jim Zorn and Kurt Warner and everybody. And of course, later on, there was a great player that played for Seattle named, his name escapes me just for a second. Cortez Kennedy. But yes, there were great rivalries between the Seahawks and the Raiders, and they've got a huge fan base, the Raiders do everywhere, and especially in Seattle. Great show. Really appreciate it. And just enjoy the heck out of hearing you and Mosh and everything. You guys always have a great time. And watch out for little Murf. Have a great one. I'm out. Bye.
All right, appreciate the call, Raiders. Steve in Houston. Yeah, man, I missed some of those rivalries, but no rivalries. I missed that rivalry between the Raiders and Seahawks. And really, because we won most of them, we were we came out on the good end of a lot of those games, and especially the ones that you mentioned there. Bo Jackson just absolutely destroyed the Seahawks, and that was fantastic, man. That was great stuff, and those are great memories of Bo Jackson. I know Dirty in the chat. I know he's happy to hear about that. He's a big Bo Jackson fan, and talk about one of the all-time greats, man. With a premature loss to the league. There's been a handful of them. Gale Sayers is another one I can think of. That, of course, that was long before even I was born. But Gale Sayers was just by all accounts one of the absolute greatest, and went down early because of knee injuries and Bo Jackson's hip, man, that kind of robbed the Raiders, man, of a lot of success on the field, absolutely. But thinking back to those Seattle games, man, that's good stuff. So appreciate Steve, appreciate the call. Pretty funny comment there in the chat. Charles Adams says, "I'm late. Did Gruden trade Uncle Mosh?" Yes, he traded Uncle Mosh for a volleyball and Little Murf over there. So, appreciate the comment there. And we wish Uncle Mosh the best in his future endeavors. Or maybe he's doing Bears fan radio now, huh? All right, next up, let's go to Jack in Oregon.
Murf, Uncle Mosh. This is Raider Jack calling from Albany. I'll try to call a couple times. That 3-minute limit's thing. I'm currently driving up to Seattle, and it's a long trip, so I figured I'd try to call in and get my thoughts out there. Now, given I haven't seen the game yet, this is Friday night, so, game's coming up. But I'm looking at Seattle. I'm going, the Legion of Boom is gone. I'm going, if we can get our running game into a rhythm, bring these guys up onto the D-line, we can open up that deep ball. We can open up that deep ball. Hopefully we'll keep Mr. Cooper in the slot and let Jordy Nelson do his thing. And hopefully we, check down on first down instead of forcing passes. That could be a thing. I think that all things considered, with what you guys have talked about on the show, what Mikey and Murf talked about, when you consider that this is Derek Carr's first year in the system, and man, they could do a lot worse. I remember seeing, frickin' Jeff George just blow it all over the place. I remember seeing, Jamarcus Russell didn't even know what thing he was doing out there. I wondered if he played for the other team. We got this elite quarterback that is smart enough to do the thing, because if he wasn't smart enough to do the thing, Gruden wouldn't have him doing the thing. Gruden knows what he's doing. He's not an idiot. He's done it before. He's going to bring us back. It's just going to take some time. Hopefully, we'll touch base on, if we keep everything going the way it's going, and it gets those key players, and we get some productivity out of the offense, and hopefully get some pressure from the D. I was an offensive player myself growing up in high school. That pressure the quarterback the other way around. So, you guys have a great night. Thanks for listening to me ramble on, and let the silver and black flow from your veins. You have a great night.
All right, appreciate the phone call. Great job there, Jack in Oregon. Poor Jack, he was driving there, as you could hear, and he called us like 3 times. So I appreciate the phone call, Raider Jack. Keep calling us back, and that's 2 now, I believe, for Raider Jack. So he's on the board. So 1 more Raider Jack, and you will be a made man here on Raiders Fan Radio. So a couple of what-ups there to Lil Murf. So there's Lil Murf there for those of you that are on the YouTube feed. There he is, and I remember one time he was, Lil Murf was telling us about how he played a pickup game against, you guys remember Ryan Switzer? Speaking of Raiders that have been traded, he played a pickup game of basketball against Ryan Switzer.
Ryan Switzer? Man, I dunked on that short stack.
Yeah, Lil Murf owned him, that's for sure. That is for sure. All right, let's go to another one here. Let's hear from our buddy Yayo in Jersey.
Uncle Mosh, let's go, fellas. Yayo from Jersey. Watching the second half right now, just started, but it's over. Man, we are trash. Colin Coward said it, right? We was going to be a dumpster fire this year. He was right. I don't know, we're going to keep making excuses for Carr, too, man. Like, saying that he's the best QB we've had in years, not saying much. Our roster looks trash. And then, apparently, we shopping Creep now, too, so we just get rid of all our players. I don't need to do this thing, but I don't know. I think we're being sabotaged right now. I don't know what else to think, man. We are trash, man. I don't know, man. Have a good one, fellas. Raiders for life, man.
Yeah, it's not good, Yayo. It's not good. First off, appreciate you calling the show, and yeah, it's 1-5 it's trash. Doesn't matter, what excuses, what defense there is. There's nothing that I or anybody else can come up with that can excuse 1-5. And there's only one way to describe that record, and that is trash. So you're definitely not going to get any pushback from us on that, me or Wilson. Wilson, you over there? You got anything to add? Anything to say about Tom Hanks? Of course not, because he abandoned you. All right, so next up, let's get to a couple emails here. Let's hear from our buddy Paul over from across the pond. And Paul says, "Evening, guys. Another bad Sunday for everyone, and patience is wearing thin." It certainly is. A lot of small things going wrong that create bigger problems. Injuries are causing us to play our rookies too much before they're really ready. Also, some of our veterans are MIA when we need them. I agree with Murf that it's been very disappointing. There are other players on the roster who have only been Raiders for 5 minutes and are already showing more heart and desire. There you go. There's the Bruce Irvin comments, right? Guys like Arden Key, right? Like Maurice Hurst, showing more grit to him already than some of the vets. So Paul goes on to say, grow up, stop sulking because your buddy left, and do the job you paid for, right? There's a lot of truth to that, man. Look, I know that Bruce Irvin is hurt, that Khalil Mack got traded. We all are. Okay? We all are. But you still got to go and you still got to do a job. And again, the prospect of being the man, I thought that would have been enough to motivate Bruce to kind of come out and dominate. Anyways, he says Coach Gruden is making some odd decisions on and off the field. He felt really sorry for Derek Carr on Sunday. The O-line was dreadful. And he's still not ready to admit that we're the worst team in the NFL. But if we lose 3 out of the next 4 games, he just might hibernate for the winter. We got some pretty favorable games coming up against the Niners and the Cardinals and the Colts. Those are very, very winnable games. And so, I'm with you, Paul. Hopefully that's not, they don't go down that route, because it's going to get really hard to get on here on this radio show and to have a positive outlook if we lose to those teams. Hopefully we wake up from this and we're like 4-5, right? That would be the best case scenario. Thanks for your hard work. No problem. He says he's Raider Nation through thin and thinner, which is what we are right now. And also he says, P.S. Love and best wishes to Mrs. Murf. After hearing what you had to go through a while back, hope all is well. Thank you very much. That's very, very kind words. Those of you that don't know, I mentioned, because there was a Twitter post that made reference to one of the listeners to Mondays with Mikey and Murf. He was going through some challenges with a brain injury that his dad was dealing with. And I just made reference that we're kind of familiar with that here in our home, because my wife had a brain tumor removed almost 7 years ago now. And we are thankful that she is completely healed and everything is lovely, but she had to go through brain surgery, and with a lot of amazing medical technology and faith, we went through all that and got through it great, and she's perfectly healthy. And so thank you, Paul, for your kind words about that. All right, next up, one more email. This is an interesting one. This comes from a guy named Philly Raider, and this was addressed to us, This was addressed to John Middlecoff. This was addressed to the Pillaging Podcast. And I can't remember if there was anybody else, but basically he sent out this letter to all of the shows he says that he listens to and wanted to get some feedback. So we'll take it, man. So we'll respond to it here instead of answering you back via email. We're going to read it here on Sea of Fans mailbag. And this is from Philly Raider. And he says he listens every week, and he's getting sick of everyone in Raider Nation and everyone in the national media, even some of the local media, taking unnecessary shots at Derek Carr. Sound familiar? You know, they're blaming him for the Raiders' lack of success, saying that he's overrated, he's overpaid. Challenge anyone who reads this email to find one successful quarterback in the league that's had to deal with the kind of dysfunction in the organization and the chaos that Derek Carr has had to. That's a great point, and that's one that we kind of touched on a little bit earlier. But it's absolutely a fair point. The lack of consistency and the volatility that's been in the organization since Derek Carr has been there. Look, it's not conducive to anybody winning, let alone your star quarterback. So when you look at players like Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers, you look at some of the rising stars, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, even Mahomes, I think it's a little too soon to be this critical of Carr based on what all those guys' experiences are before Gruden. There's a constant there with their coaches. They're not going anywhere, and that stability has shown they can operate at a high level. And then he goes on and does a great job of basically just kind of details what the history has been. We're all pretty familiar with what the challenges have been over the past 5 years. And then at the end, he says this, can't stress enough that no quarterback in the NFL, at least in my memory, has ever had to endure the entire weight of a dysfunctional franchise on his shoulders for most of his career. If you don't think that lack of stability and cohesion from an organizational standpoint will affect a franchise quarterback, then you're highly mistaken. I'm not saying Derek doesn't have his deficiencies, but he's far better than anything we've had since 2003 and Rich Gannon's MVP season. I'd love to hear your thoughts and my take on the matter. Well, Philly Raider, thank you for reaching out to us, and you heard my thoughts about it, so I'm not going to repeat myself, but because I'm with you. There are big gaping holes in this football team, and the quarterback position is certainly not one of them. All right, let's go ahead and hit another voicemail here, and let's hear from our buddy Running Bear, and congratulations, Mr. Tim, Mr. Running Bear. You are now a made man on Raiders Fan Radio, and let's hear his voicemail.
Hey, Uncle Mosh and Murf. This is Running Bear from Tulare, California. Whew, what a game, right? Horrible. Our offensive line is way injured. I don't blame this on the running back or quarterback. We have so many injuries today. I don't know. I hope we have enough time in this bye week to get healed up so that we actually have people on the field for the next game. For all the people who are upset with Carr, there's nothing he could have done today. He had no way of being able to get the ball out. They were on him too fast. Same thing with Lynch. He couldn't get any holes to run through. This was just a bad offensive line day. And our defense isn't doing all that great either. Some play calling could have been better, but we just got to keep hanging in there. It's going to be a long year. We just got to, try to grow from this year and give them a chance to grow with each other. And I know it sucks. I want them to win, and so does everybody else, but step by step. All right, go Raider Nation.
All right, thank you for the phone call, Mr. Running Bear, and congratulations on being a made man here on Raiders Fan Radio.
You are a made man. You showed you are part of the family by participation. By chance, a man like yourself should make enemies, then they would become my enemies. Showing you are a friend of Raiders Fan Radio, you have leapt across the line. Friendship is everything. Friendship is more than talent. It is more than the government. It's almost equal to family. Be loyal. Made man, Raider fan. Someday, and that day may never come, I'll call upon you to do a service for me. But until that day, accept this as a gift. And don't ever forget, words can hurt more, but silence can break hearts.
Awesome. Thank you, Running Bear, for supporting our show. Thank you for the messages. Thank you for definitely being one of the great listeners and supporters of Raiders Fan Radio, and now join some pretty exclusive company, being a made man here on Raiders Fan Radio. So speaking of that, so Tim and Running Bear and I have exchanged quite a few messages over Messenger and Twitter and whatnot. I would throw this out there. I am so thankful for the way that our show has grown. Our show has grown leaps and bounds over the past year, and I'm so thankful to every one of you. And we really tried to message back to all of you. For sure, certainly, you can always get us an email or a voicemail. You know we're going to get those. If you email show@RaidersFanRadio.com or you call 909-345-3346, we will always get your message that way. With social media the way that it is, and with us having all the Murf Fan Cave stuff, the Raiders Fan Radio stuff, the my stuff, that there's so many out there. A lot of times, and I try to get to them all, but I can miss them. So if I've missed you, please don't take that the wrong way. I've not ignored you, and don't have your feelings hurt by that, because I try to respond to everyone, because you guys are what it's all about, man. I love Raider Nation. So definitely keep hitting us up with the messages, but know that if you want to certainly get something to us for sure, then call us or email us here on the show. And so, okay, so speaking of made men, let's hear from our buddy Ken, Monster Mash Ken, the creator of Little Murf.
Murf, Washington, Little Murf. This is Monster Mash Ken out in New York. I just wanted to say congratulations on show 99. I thought of 9 things that I'm thankful for, because I damn sure ain't thankful for what the Raiders are putting out right now, so I'll try to keep it positive. And it's a tough game. I'll try to keep this short, but I made a little list here. Forgive me, I'm going to kind of read a little bit. First of all, I want to say I'm thankful for my wife. Every year I tell her this is the year, and she smiles at me, and she supports my delusions of grandeur, knowing it's BS that the Raiders are still going to suck. She's the best. I'm thankful for the clerks at the stores that sell Raider jerseys to us fans, knowing damn well that we're just throwing money at them freely, and they're so polite about taking our money without stopping us. I'm also thankful for Madden video games. It's the only chance I get to see my Raiders dominate all season. I'm also thankful for so-called Raider fans that are Madden gamers, because they obviously have more experience in coaching and play calling and running an organization better than NFL coaches just from playing video games. They all make it clear behind the computer screen and the phone screen on social media that they know what they can do better than Gruden and McKenzie. So God bless them. I'm also thankful for any team that beats the Bears this season, because that's just going to benefit us. I'm really thankful for that. Number 6, I'm thankful for this bye week, because it's loser-free football weekend. Woo-hoo! Let's see what else. I'm thankful for Jalen Richard, Marshawn Lynch, Rodney Hudson, and Jared Cook. They continue to play no matter what the score is. They just leave it all out there. I do want to say Carr as well, but it's just tough to say, because you don't know. I mean, I think he's trying his best, and Carr is always my boy. I'm always going to have his back, so I'll add Carr to that little list. I also want to thank the true fans, the people that stick with our team, win, lose, or draw. It's never been easy being a Raider fan. I will always be a Raider fan. It's a life choice, and it's just not our season this year. And I think it's going to be an exodus of when what fans stay and go when the Raiders leave. And last but not least, most importantly, I want to thank you guys. You give us fans free therapy every week. You let us followers vent our frustrations and give us the opportunities to do this on the air. You go through all the hard work of doing this podcast weekly when we are in a doomed season. It gives us something to laugh at and follow during the long weeks after a loss. Thank you. Anyway, sorry for reading. I know it's not cool, but I just wanted to make sure I got that all outright. And I still believe we should still get that playmaker. I think we should go after Bell. It's going to be a great trading deadline. I think we're going to make some moves. I think it's a fire sale, but that's just me. And I also was going to go after that shirt. I had this whole idea planned because I wanted to win the shirt, but then I'm thinking I don't want anything to remember with this game in London. It's done. So anyway, I'm going to bow out. So I think it was Raider Kev with the awesome Boba Fett. I love it. That was pretty badass. That was my 9 things that I'm thankful for just on your 99th show. Hopefully, you have another 99 shows after this, and they're all great, and I'm there with you guys. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great bye week. Yeah, that's about. But anyway, God bless. Take care, guys. Talk to you guys in a week.
awesome call, Monster Mash Ken. Check out Monster Mash Custom Action Figures on Facebook. And Ken does great work. As you can see, the little Murf there. There he is. And not only does he do great work of that, but he's a great caller and great supporter of Raiders Fan Radio. That was an awesome call. So let me hit a few things up there. Number one, thank you for the congratulations on number 99. That's fun. And we're going to have fun next week with number 100. So I won't hit all 9, but a few things that you said there. So number one, how your wife laughs at you and kind of gives you that, like she humors you and gives you that patronizing response. I got one too. It's so funny how my wife is like, oh no, are they on Sundays? I go downstairs and she kind of gives me a look like, well, and I go, I know they lost again. And she goes, what the heck? Like, it's just funny because she's like, I thought you said they were going to be good. No, they're not, honey. They're terrible. They're terrible year in and year out. This is the woman that's listened to me tell her how Terrell Pryor was a franchise quarterback. This is the woman that, I've told her a lot of things about the Raiders over the years, and none of it ever comes to fruition. We always stink. So I'm with you on that one in terms of having to try to explain it to your spouse. In terms of Madden, I'm an avid Madden gamer. I love playing Madden. I got my Derek Carr custom cover right up here behind me. I love playing Madden, and yes, I'm with you. It's the only place that I can see the Raiders win is there playing the Madden game. And we say that because it's not easy being a fan. He brought up the point that it's not easy, and there's a lot of people jumping ship. And I said this on Mondays with Mikey and Murf this week, that not to be over dramatic about it, but it kind of breaks my heart a little bit that Raider fan abandons their fandom. And regardless of the reason, regardless of it's because you're pissed off of where they're going to go play, you're pissed off because of the way that they're ran, you're pissed off because of their performance, whatever it is, to lay down your fandom like that, first off, it doesn't compute because this is just in me. Like, I don't know any other way to be than a Raider fan. I mean, I was literally born into Raider fandom. I was in utero at the Oakland Coliseum. My mom went to the 72 World Series pregnant with me. My first trip to the World Series was in my mom's belly. I'm just this Oakland Coliseum and this Raider thing and even this A's thing, it's just part of who I am. So to just lay it down. Now, first and foremost, Christ follower, husband, father, those things more important. But in terms of just outside of that, it's Raiders, man. That's who I am. So to just lay your fandom down that easily, I don't understand that. And it sucks. It hurts me when I see people that do it because I'm like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're missing out on. You're missing Raider Nation. You're not only parting ways with being a fan of that team, but you're parting ways with us. And we are what makes the Raiders so cool, frankly. Raider Nation is unlike anybody else. They're unlike any other fan base in all of sports. And it doesn't matter where they play and how good they're playing. You can still get together with your family. You can still barbecue on the weekends. You can still do all of those great, wonderful things that encompass the football team that has nothing to do with where they play and how good they're playing. So the fact that you're laying down your fandom, that's kind of a bummer. And the last thing I'll say, he mentioned about winning the shirt. We had one of the London shirts to give away. The folks at Silver and Black UK were so kind to send us over one of those shirts, and we just had a quick selfie contest. And Kev not only took a picture of himself in the Boba Fett Raider, as the Boba Fett Raider, but he had the Union Jack flag and the Scottish flag behind him to celebrate the fact that they were playing in the UK. So Kevin wins. So I'm gonna I'm gonna snail mail out Kevin that shirt here next week. So anyways, great call, Ken. Got me on my soapbox a little bit there. And so I appreciate that call. And let's go ahead and we got a couple more. First off, Steve in Houston called us back.
What is up? This is Raider Jack reaching out to Murf and Uncle Mosh.
Looks like I got that one labeled wrong. That one's Raider Jack. Sorry about that.
It is a slow, sad morning here in Albany, Oregon. The Raiders lose again in London to the Sea Chickens. What is going on? How are you going to go and throw for 142 yards out of 31 attempts, man? You're sitting there passing to the wrong people. Our leading receiver was a running back. Richard was the leading receiver, followed by Seth Roberts. Jordy Nelson, 6 yards. What is going on here? When you look at the rushes, you're looking at the rushes, and Marshawn Lynch leads it off at 45. But, man, Derek Carr is the second-best rusher in that game for 31 yards. I don't know what to think this morning, man. I don't know what to think. I know I'm positive in the fact that we're rebuilding. I got that going, but you got to show up. I'm sitting here watching articles go by about frickin' us going around shopping Amari Cooper. Why the expletive deleted would we do that? I read it on Friday though. They were talking who would give us the best trade. They're trying to say that we'd send him to the Cowboys, man. I don't want to go through the Bleacher Report and see that crap. I want to see us put up some more wins. Now next game we're playing Indianapolis, and you guys recall I'm from Indianapolis, so I got a family sitting there going, "Go Colts," and I'm going, "Oh no." I'm looking at the defense, man. Arden Key won and only sacked the game. Not a lot of great pressure. 27-3. We're still not hitting that end zone. It's going to take time. I keep saying it's going to take time, but I'd like to see some progression, man. Instead, I'm seeing us take steps backward. I'm not jumping ship. I'm not doing any of that. But, man, at this point, when you're 1-5, you're looking at, are we going to turn around and win the rest of the games? Is there going to be an explosiveness that appears? I remember watching frickin' Bledsoe pop in for the frickin' Patriots and put up 9 wins in a frickin' row and get them into the playoffs, man. Chucky is being a little bit fancy. I think that if he tones back the fanciness, he'll be a lot better off. We went to the playoffs under frickin' Jack Del Rio with a very similar core of players that we got now. And they turned around and just tried to simplify it a little bit, know what they're going to produce, and then start throwing it more intricate plays in there, throwing more intricate looks at Carr on the offensive side when he gets used to those routes. I think it's going to be okay. But right now everybody's taking advantage of the fact that we're a little bit new. You know, not to be new or anything, but what the hell? Keep our faith in our team. Let's go into Indianapolis, or let's go up against Indianapolis and freaking knock their socks off, man. Go Raiders.
All right, appreciate the phone call. Yeah, Indianapolis is definitely going to be one of those very, very winnable games. I mentioned we got the Colts, we got the Niners, and we got the Cardinals on tap. So it's very possible that we could be 4-5. And let me tell you this, Raider Nation, knowing that was what our record was going to be, or knowing that that's what the upcoming schedule was going to be, when Derek Carr got hurt in the Seattle game, when he got his arm hit, and of course, and everybody's locked in on the fact he looked like he was crying or whatever. We were wondering, are we going to see A.J. McCarron, right? And if the Raiders would have got another possession, we would have saw A.J. McCarron because Carr wasn't going back in. And Uncle Mosh looks over at me and he goes, what's going to happen if Carr is for real hurt and we got A.J. McCarron the next few games and the Raiders roll off 3 in a row against these bad teams, and now we have a fabricated quarterback controversy? Can you imagine? If you think Raider Twitter and Raiders fan Facebook is bad now, can you imagine if we'd have freaking had A.J. McCarron go and win a few games for us? Holy mackerel, that would have been weird. All right, let's go to another call. I lied. We do still have 2 more. Let's hear from our buddy Mojo. Appreciate Mojo. Appreciate you listening to us every week, of course, and appreciate Mojo and his son Max, and for checking us out every Tuesday and Thursday morning. Much appreciated support, guys, and hope you have a great day. If you're listening to us in the morning, hope you have a great rest of the day. And here's Mojo.
Hey, fellas. It's Mojo from San Diego. I got 2 words for you. Dumpster fire. Guess I'll be listening for this to come on again. I got nothing else, man. I'm totally disgusted. Just win, baby.
1-5 is dumpster fire. 1-5 is trash. And you know, I have the good fortune of having a few days. There's a reason we do this show on Wednesday nights, because it's kind of right in the middle of the news cycle, and I have a few days to let the game, you know, kind of process. And because it's tougher with me on Mondays with Mikey and Murf, but if you would hear Uncle Mosh and I we were almost arguing with one another. We were so mad because over like little stupid stuff, because it sucks, man. It sucks to lose. And despite potential and schemes and all the other things, at the end of the day, it's about W's. And so I'm with you, Mojo, man. It's frustrating. It's tough, and I know Mojo called real close to after the game was over, and it's just deflating, man. It's deflating, and that's why what I said about the last caller, or one of the last callers, that's why it's important to just look, Mojo's a great example. You're riding into work, into school. It's you and your son, Max, and you're listening to, thankfully you're listening to this show. And I'm flattered you would take your time to listen to us. But that's what it's about. You're sharing the experience with your kid. Like, that's what Raider Nation is. That's what the Raiders are. And if you keep it about that, you never lose, right? I know it's rough, and I know it sucks, but those are the things, at least that's what I do. That's how I resolve it in my head and resolve it in my fandom and still get excited to come on a radio show and talk for now an hour and 26 minutes with a volleyball. You know what I mean? It's because I just love Raider Nation, and I just love being a fan of this football team. So I don't know if that helps or not, but I don't know. All right, last one of the day. And yes, I am doing a show with a volleyball. You see? I don't know if as a kid, thinking about like what my life was going to turn out like, I'm pretty sure that mid-40s doing an internet television / radio show with a volleyball was not on the list. It's here from Alberto in LA.
It's Ray Alberto from LA. I don't got any words, man. For real. That game was pitiful. That was one of the worst games ever by the Raiders. Well, at least to date. Nothing on defense except Worley. His interception. Offense, it was nothing. There was nothing on offense. Yes, I understand the O-line banged up. But man, what the hell? I got nothing to say. I really don't. Because, like, what else is there to say? We suck right now. We do. It sucks to say that, but we suck. You know, we got nothing on offense, nothing on defense. Special teams is bad as well. And, you know, when we're bad, when teams are bad, their special teams are supposed to be good. But this time it isn't. Man. And now Amari Cooper might be traded. And Carl Joseph, I actually felt like Carl Joseph was going to be traded during the offseason because I didn't hear anything from Carl Joseph about like how good he's playing. I only heard from like Obi and Aaron Connolly how they progressed, but I didn't hear nothing of Carl Joseph. But if they trade Amari Cooper, that's going to be a really bad decision. Because isn't Gruden supposed to be the offensive guy, quarterback guru? And with a quarterback, you need a receiver. Amari Cooper is that receiver. He gets open a lot. Just that Derek Carr doesn't throw to him a lot. But, this team, I thought, like, at least we were going to be maybe 3-4. Not 3-4, like 3-3. Not 1-5. The only game that we won was with the Browns, and that was not even good showing. I'm just mad. 27-3, we did better with the Seahawks in 2014 when Derek Carr in his rookie year. I don't know. All I know is about this season is that the Raiders got a new season. Not expecting anything of this season anymore. Since they lost to the Chargers in LA, now the three other games I want them to win is the Niners, the Chiefs, and the Steelers because, well, everyone hates the Steelers. But anyway, the Raiders, you know, still repping the Raiders. I rep them all year, all day long. I don't care if the Chargers are winning or the Rams. You know, they're not LA. The Raiders still run this place. Anyway.
All right, Eric, cut him off. You only get 3 minutes on a Google Voice. So when you call the Raiders Fan Radio hotline, 909-345-3346, it's going to cut you off after 3 minutes. So definitely get those takes in there so we can. But I think I got the gist of what you were saying and appreciate the call, Alberto in LA. And that's his second call as well. So you are on the precipice of becoming a made man. Real quick on Amari Cooper. What a bummer, man. I remember, for those of you who don't know, I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm from San Jose, California, born and raised long time, and eventually made my way out I live in the South now. I live in Middle Tennessee, and I live in the heart of SEC country. Like I live, within hours of Knoxville, Tennessee, and Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Auburn, Alabama, and Gainesville, Florida, and you know what I mean? Like I live right in the middle of all of these major college programs, right? A little bit away from LSU, but you get the point. We watch a lot of SEC football around here, and all of the people that I work with and am friends with, they're all SEC football fans. It's like religion out here. Amari Cooper was amazing in Alabama. And I remember watching Alabama games and like just fantasizing about the concept of this guy wearing silver and black and just being like, wow, if we could get this guy on the team, man, he's amazing. He's amazing downfield. A.J. McCarron, right? No mystery there, was his quarterback. I mean, it was incredible, man. He was an absolute rock star at Alabama. And so when the Raiders drafted him, there was nobody happier than me, man. I was like, man, this is going to be great. And then he turns in back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and it's like, wow, all right, here we go. And then something happened, man. And he had some drops that first year, and then in year 2, if you remember, it seemed like he got them fixed. Like, we thought, okay, we're kind of past this now. But then the drops came back, and then they came back again, and now it's like the drops got worse. And now he's like disappearing for games at a time. Alberto says, that Carr's not throwing him the ball. Well, Carr threw him the ball a lot. Carr didn't just all of a sudden decide to stop throwing him the football. And by all accounts, it's because he's not getting open as much anymore. And now the Raiders will defend their guy, and the Raiders will tell you, well, it's because other teams are putting their best defenders on him, and that's why he's not getting open. Well, that's the Raiders kind of apologizing for Amari Cooper, because when you look around the league and you look at Julio Jones and you look at Devontae Adams and you look at A.J. Green and you look at Antonio Brown and you look at all the premier wide receivers in the league, well, they're getting all the best coverages too, but those guys are still finding a way to make themselves become part of the game. Heck, even Jarvis Landry, right? I don't know what happens to Cooper. Well, now we're hearing, well, maybe he doesn't have a heart for the game. Maybe he's disenfranchised for some reason. If his heart's not in football and he doesn't love football as much as Gruden does, and we know that's a John Gruden thing, you got to love his football as much as he does to play for him. If for whatever reason Amari Cooper doesn't love football as much as Gruden, then he's going to be gone. And if he doesn't love football as much because he's a Raider, well, then he's still going to be gone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whether it's the organization's fault that he's become disenfranchised or if he's just becoming that way with the sport as a whole, either one isn't good for our team. And it's certainly not the Raiders that are floating it out there that he's not all in, because of the Raiders are the ones that stand to lose, because the Raiders are the ones that are trying to, if they are going to trade him, acquire as much value as they possibly can. And if the guy's got if the understanding is that he's not all in, well, then who's going to give up big value for him? So the Raiders are stuck. The Raiders are in a tough spot with Amari Cooper because the guy's coming up on a 5th-year option. They got to pay him like $13 million. Like, is this the kind of guy you want to pay $13 million to? A guy that goes away for 5 or 6 games in the season when you need him most? Well, look, he's not a number one. I don't think he's a number one. And clearly Jordy's not a number one. Jordy's still got some skills, but he ain't a number one. Martavis Bryant clearly isn't a number one. I thought out of everybody, that would be the guy. Big-bodied, he's lanky. I mean, maybe I just thought too much of Randy Moss, and because they're the same frame, and you know what I mean. I was just thinking that, this guy could be that type of a player. He could blow the top off of a defense, high point footballs, whatever. But that's not what Martavis Bryant does. So we really don't. I thought, frankly, this was going to be one of the strengths of our team in this season, and it's not. Wide receivers is one of the weaker points of our team, frankly. So I said all that to say this: if Cooper gets traded, I'm going to be equally disappointed with you, Alberto. But I understand why they would let him go. I understand why they would trade him. And I think, frankly, at this point, it's unfortunately, but it's warranted.
We are Metallica, and we are here for your Oakland Raiders!
You know why we out here, and we ain't playing around today.
From The Walking Dead to errant Jedi Knights, Raiders fans are a rogues gallery.
All right, Raider Nation, one more thing for you before we get to the interview with stringer drummer Johnny Spencer. We've been running a tagline contest to compete for a Carhartt hat. It's this Carhartt hat here. The folks at Carhartt were kind enough to send us some of their new gear. This is the Carhartt 47 brand NFL licensed hats. They're really cool. They're like, if you can hear it, they're like that Carhartt material, that like outdoor material. That's why this one's brown. It's that legendary Carhartt material. It's got brass rivets and the air holes and stuff. Like, they're legit, man. They're cool. I wear the black one, and I got Mosh's behind me here. He likes the brown one, and so we're gonna give one of those away. We thought no better way to give it away than to do a tagline contest. Uncle Mosh and I love us some taglines. Uncle Mosh especially, he's great with them and loves to read your taglines. So we did a contest. We asked everybody to send them in. Mosh and I narrowed them down to a top 4, and then we had an East and West bracket and had you all vote. And on our Facebook groups, we posted them up there, and thankfully you all took some time to vote on all of these, and we narrowed it down to 2. We narrowed it down to Tom in Jersey and to Emiliano, our buddy Big Raider Trucker out in California. And the winner is Emiliano, Big Raider Trucker. Congratulations, buddy. Woo! I need applause. Wait, here we go. All right, congratulations, Emiliano. And now, so in the tagline contest, we had a lot of submissions. Let's see, as I mentioned, Tom in Jersey, David in Scotland, Rodney in Ohio, Thomas in the ATL, Adnan, Jaspreet, Paul, Emiliano the winner, Ron in Ohio, Kevin the Raider Nerd, Jeff in Tennessee, Chris in New Jersey with an honorable mention. Poop, there it is. But anyways, we had some great submissions, so thank you to those of you that sent those in to us. And so, let's hear them. So Tom in Jersey, the runner-up was Wield the Shield, which was a great tagline. A lot of these were great, but the winner is Emiliano, and this is fantastic. What happens in Vegas started in Oakland, and don't you know that it did? And there is nothing more relevant when the Raiders get to Las Vegas than recognizing the roots, recognizing the history of this team, and no matter what, it started in Oakland. So we're gonna thankfully share that with a lot of our stuff here going forward. Or it happens in Vegas, started in Oakland. So thank you again to all those of you that submitted to the tagline competition. And Emiliano, shoot me your address, and I will email. I keep saying that. Shoot me your address, and I'll mail you this hat out right away. And also, Kevin, I need to mail you that shirt. All right. Last on the show, we have an interview with Johnny Spencer. Johnny is the drummer for punk rock band Stringer. He is from Oakland. He is a A's fan. He is a Raiders fan. And Johnny had a brush with being a meme. He went viral, Johnny did, because he went to the New York Yankees Oakland A's wild card playoff game, and I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but there's video of a Yankee fan dumping a beer on an A's fan at the game. And the Oakland A's reached out to that guy, and that guy happens to be Johnny Spencer. So not only did the A's reach out to him, but Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day reached out to him. Like, all these people reached out to him and said, like, we got your back. Thank you for representing Oakland. Thank you for representing the A's and the Bronx. And so we reached out to him, and he was kind enough to share some time with us. And not only did we talk to him about his band, and we talked to him about the A's, but of course we had to talk to him about our beloved Oakland Raiders. So for those of you on the YouTube feed, this will be goodbye. For those of you on the podcast, here comes the interview with Johnny Spencer. All right, Raider Nation, next up here on Raiders Fan Radio, joining me is the drummer from the rock band Stringer. Stringer is a New York punk rock band who released their first EP in 2015 called Deadass, and just released this past July the new album My Bad. You can find My Bad on iTunes, and these guys are awesome. They definitely rock. And why would we have the drummer from Stringer here on Raiders Fan Radio? Because he is a hardcore, not only Oakland A's fan, but a Raider fan. He's from Oakland. And so welcome to the show, John Spencer. Welcome, John.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you on the show, man. So, hey, first off, everything's got to get a label nowadays, right? So what do we call you? Are you a punk rock band? Are you a hard rock band? Like, what kind of band are you guys?
Yeah, I tend to say punk rock. We're definitely, if you compare us to like, the Replacements or the Ramones, then like we're not that level of punk rock. We're not quite old school. We definitely mix a little Green Day. We mix a little Weezer, a little Pavement. But I still call it punk rock because I think in this day and age, we're a good representation of where that music has gone.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, man, I dig it. Not only my house, we're rockers for sure. Both my kids are, my wife is. And we were listening to your guys' stuff we love. We listened to Ghosts, which is one of the newer songs that just came out. And it's great. And and I hope this is a compliment, it kind of reminded us like the Hives. Like that kind of a vibe.
Yeah.
Man. Like it was really good, man. We dug it.
Oh man, that's a big compliment. I love the Hives. I love the sound that they go for. So I'm glad that you got that impression from our music too. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, it was cool. And then listening to some of your other stuff, like I definitely hear some grunge influence in there. Like you guys are kind of, you kind of are all over. Like there's a lot of influences going on in your music, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a ton. I mean, that just speaks to like the breadth of the catalogs that we listen to and what we grew up listening to. And so it extends from being kids and growing up during like Green Day, Blink-182 in the early 2000s and the 90s. And then obviously getting into Nirvana and then just going back from there. And I personally went into jazz. So like even from a jazz perspective, Elvin Jones, who's a jazz drummer, has influenced my playing a lot. And then obviously Kurt Cobain has influenced our main songwriter Max a lot. And then you just keep going back, like I said, Ramones, Replacements, Velvet Undergrounds, and we try to bring that all together in our music.
That's cool. Now you mentioned Green Day, and we know that those guys got started in the East Bay, right, of California, and that's where you're from as well, right? You're from Oakland?
That's right. Yeah, born and raised in Oakland, and weirdly enough, I actually went to middle school with Billy Joe Armstrong's kids, the lead singer of Green Day.
Oh, oh wow, no kidding.
So that's kind of crazy. Yeah, so I actually got to meet him back in the early 2000s when I was a kid, and this was like right after American Idiot had come out, so he was huge, and I was like, losing it over Green Day and just being obsessed with them. So that was really cool to be able to meet him, and just that East Bay scene in general. Gilman Street, the classic venue is still thriving, and there was definitely a very big DIY scene when I was growing up, and that's kind of what helped foster my musical interest and help the bands that I was playing in get shows and just kind of connect to that musical community.
That's cool. So then how long have you been out in New York City? Did you go out there with the band, or did you go out there and then meet your bandmates, or how'd that work?
Yeah, so I met them out here. I moved out here in 2011, so I've been here for about 7 years. Initially, it was to study music. I started at the Manhattan School for Music, studying jazz drum set, because in high school I was really into jazz, and so that kind of was helping take my drumming to the next level. So I moved out here and then was at the jazz school, but was still a punk rocker at heart. And so I kind of connected with a couple other guys there that were also rock guys and into punk rock. And then they sort of introduced me to the Brooklyn music scene and helped me meet all these people like Mark and Max, who are my bandmates now.
That's cool. And, we, the scene, the rock and roll scene out there is awesome. We have a few shows on our network, and one of the guys, he's a musician, and he's into like the psychobilly stuff, Tombstone Brawlers and whatnot. They talk quite a bit about the music scene there in New York and how there's a little bit of almost a revival of that punk scene that you guys are involved in. You're doing shows all over there, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that was the coolest part for me moving from California to New York. And one of the reasons that I've really stayed here, even after graduating from college, is that, growing up, there was a very thriving DIY scene in Oakland and in Berkeley. And so a lot of house shows, warehouse parties, casual venues, people would just, sign a lease for a couple months, put up a stage and, throw a bunch of shows. And so once I came out to New York City and I connected with a lot of these guys, I found a very similar scene in Bushwick, in Williamsburg, in these different Brooklyn neighborhoods, and people that were putting on house shows, basement shows, warehouse parties, just getting a lease and putting up a stage and having an all ages show. And the coolest part too, which is that both of those communities, it was heavily focused on all ages, which for us is a really big thing because a lot of our fans are not 21 yet. And in New York City, almost all of the venues are 21 plus. And so that's a real bummer when you're a kid and you're trying to go see live music. If you can't go to any of these shows, then that kind of prevents the music scene from sort of growing up and moving forward. And so it's really important to have younger kids at the shows because just like when I was a kid, 12, 13, going to shows and seeing these guys who are not that much older than me playing in rock bands, playing these shows, like that's how you get inspired to start your own band. And so I'm really glad that scene exists in Brooklyn and we're doing our best to help foster it.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. And I think it's a lot to be said for bands like you all that are doing that to get to the younger crowds too, especially because the music industry, and this, has changed so much over the years, right? Like it's so much different than it was even 20 years ago. So to have a band like you all up and coming and out there grinding and doing shows and playing live and all that, like that's almost like an art that started to become lost a little bit, right? So is there a reemergence of that now? Are we starting to see more of that now?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope so. It is tricky because there's so much emphasis put on social media these days, and your social media numbers, how many Facebook likes, how many Twitter followers, all this stuff. And we're an older school band in the sense that we like to do stuff from the ground up. We like to do grassroots type stuff and DIY type stuff. And so spending all of our days sitting in front of a computer trying to get people to like us on Facebook just does not sound like a good time. And it's not how we want to build our business. And unfortunately, that's the easy way into the industry, is just get a bunch of likes and a label will see that, think that you're popular and pick you up. But if you can try to build a more grassroots movement, word of mouth, playing these smaller shows and just guerrilla style all the time, and then going up to Boston, going down to DC, going to Jersey, and just building your fan base that way more by word of mouth is so much more rewarding. And I think that community is still definitely exists and is vibrant for sure. That's awesome, man. I think that's so cool. And, my kids are young teenagers now, and I would tell them about what it was like, the music scene back when I'm considerably older than you are. I'm in my mid 40s, but like growing up like in South San Jose and stuff, and like all the different, clubs and bars and stuff throughout there. It was like you said, it was a thriving scene. It was a lot of fun, and it felt like some of that kind of got lost there for a while. And I'm so glad that it's coming back. And so I'm encouraged that bands like you are out there doing that. So now my kids got someone to go see. You know what I mean? They got someone to go to be influenced by. So I think that's cool stuff. So all right. So you're from Oakland. So yeah, man, absolutely. So you're from Oakland. We know you're a big A's fan, and you kind of came on our radar a little bit because you had this incident that I bet you didn't. You talk about becoming viral in social media, and here it was. You became this viral story and this meme that was out there. Tell us a little bit about what happened. Tell us about your experience at Yankee Stadium being an A's fan. Yeah, I mean, what a weird few days it's been. That's for sure. Going viral, and then sort of all of a sudden now having a lot of eyes on you and thinking about, all right, how do I want to be in this moment? How do I want to maybe use this moment for good? But so it started with, so born and raised in Oakland, been a huge A's fan my whole life, and always kind of hated the Yankees a little bit, casually, just because we would build up all these great players. We had this amazing farm system, and then they would get to the A's, they would kill it with the A's for a few seasons, and then the Yankees would just buy them out because the Yankees had all the money. They had like the biggest budget in MLB. The A's, I think, are maybe second to last for the lowest budget in the MLB. And so, I always had a chip on my shoulder about that. And so I always loved seeing the A's and the Yankees play. So when I saw it was that the wild card, the 1-game wild card, game was going to be in New York, A's Yankees, I was like, I have to go. And of course I have to rep my Chavez jersey, which I've had since I was 13 years old. I got it for my 13th birthday. It actually fits me now because it's a real, authentic jersey. So they don't make them for kids. So now I finally fit into it, which is great. So I convinced my girlfriend to go to the game with me. She likes baseball, not a huge fan though, doesn't care that much for it. And I definitely did not prepare her for what it was going to be like being an opposing fan at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, especially during the wild card game. Tensions are high. And so I'm very thankful that she handled it with class and with style. She took it all in stride. But yeah, so basically as far as this event goes, I mean, the A's were already down 2-0 by the first inning. And so we get to, I believe it was the bottom of the 6th inning where the Yankees scored 4 runs. And so tension is building. People are getting excited. The Yankees are getting on base. And then at one point, I forgot who it was, but he hits a triple and they score like 2 or 3 runs. And at that point, the stadium goes crazy. That's the moment that you see right when the video starts, is right when everyone is celebrating from that moment. And it's clear at that point that it's looking real bad for the A's. And so Yankees are celebrating. And then this guy, his name's Chris. I've now met him. I'm actually going to the game with him tonight, funny enough. But he and that's a whole different story. But he has this whole cup of beer and just decides it's the right moment to dump it on my head, despite that I'm losing and I'm already depressed and all these Yankees fans around me are yelling. And so he pours his whole beer on my head and then chucks the empty cup at me. And, I'm not a violent person. It takes a lot for me to get angry. And, getting a beer dumped on when I'm repping Oakland and repping my A's, I took that with pride, and it actually only made me more proud to be an A's fan because I was there holding it down for Oakland, and I knew Oakland would be proud of me. And I'm very blessed and glad that I've gotten the recognition that I have. But I would have done it regardless, and I'll do it again any day. But yeah, so that happened, and I just started looking around. I mean, if you've seen the video, you'll see my face is just like, kind of like, what the heck is going on? Like, who would throw a beer at a dude whose team is losing? It's not like I was like jumping up and down being an a-hole to them. I was just standing there like sad that I'm now down 6-0 and I get this beer thrown on me. And so I'm looking around and finally I see these guys laughing at me and I'm like, all right, whatever, man. It's not worth getting into. Like, I'm not a violent person. I'm not going to be confrontational. I'm just here to rep the A's. And so that was it. And I still had a good time, went home, but had no idea what was going to happen the next day. And the video got posted and then just went viral from there. So
yeah. So the A's picked you up, right? They hooked you up. They're going to send you some gear. A lot of people reached out to you, right? So the funny part of this story to me is who throws like that beer must have been like $20 worth of beer, right? Like they're not cheap at Yankee Stadium, right? To do that. But I thought it was
not cheap. And a lot of people were making fun of him too. Like who wastes a $15, $20 beer on a A's fan whose team is already losing, you know. So, yeah, and I mean, if you see any of the support on social media, people have been super nice to me and respectful and calling me out for being for de-escalating the situation and not getting upset and getting aggravated and making it a whole thing, because it could have turned into A's Yankees fans get into fight in bleachers after beer is thrown, you know. But instead, it's like Yankees fan throws beer at A's fan's like, whatever, dude, I don't care. Like, so I'm glad that was the narrative and that it was a positive thing. If I'm going to be viral at anything, I'm really glad that it was a positive story and not necessarily a negative one. And then from there, I was like, all right, well, people are already paying attention. People are looking at this story. And Chris himself, who's the guy who threw the beer, and his friend Alex, who took the video, they're getting a lot of negative coverage. And people are being like, oh, you guys are blah, blah, blah. And hateful comments are being thrown at them. I'm even starting to see racial slurs. And I'm like, man, I do not want to be a part of this, like, Twitter, like, nightmare and this, like, hatred that is just brewing online. And so I thought the only thing I can do is try to flip the script a little bit, turn the story around. And that's really what motivated me to get in touch with them and then meet up with Chris and Alex later that night, shake their hand. They offered to buy me drinks. They apologized, and then take some photos and post on social media and just tell the world, like, look, everyone, you know, if someone hurts you like this, I know that you can get upset, but it's okay to make amends. Like, try to stand up and be the better person when you can. And you see the best in people, I guess. So.
That's awesome, man. Well, I think you handled it perfectly, and I'm glad you're getting the positive recognition the way that you are, and the way that you de-escalated it, and the way, I mean, it takes a lot, right? Because everything is, you know, everybody's, you know, like you mentioned with social media, everything's click happy and everything. Well, unfortunately, a lot of times it's, you know, it's the fights, and you end up on World Star Hip Hop or something because there was a brawl in the stands, and so I'm glad.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I'm glad that didn't happen that way, and that it evolved into a positive realm. And like, I think that's so cool. Like, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Swingers or not, but you know, when like Vince Vaughn and like his buddies, like they get into a little altercation in a parking lot, and then like later on you find out they met up at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, and they ended up like sharing a meal together, and like everything was like, it reminded me of that when I saw the picture of you with these guys. I'm like, here it is, they had this altercation at the game, and then like they were having beers together later. I'm like, I love that. Like that was such a cool thing, man. So kudos to you for sure.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, right on. That was cool.
I appreciate it.
So hey, so before we let you go, so we are Raiders Fan Radio. So let's ask you a little bit about the Raiders, man. What do you think? You know, tell me a little bit about your history with the team.
Yeah.
So you grew up a Raiders fan as well, or what?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, from the day I was born, I was Oakland through and through. So which for most of my life, I have to be honest, has been really hard. It's hard to be an Oakland fan between the Raiders, the A's, and of course the Warriors. And, you know, they've all had their moments. The Warriors now, of course, everyone's a freaking Warrior. You love the Warriors or you hate them now. That's fine. I've been a Warriors fan since day one, though. I saw them losing season after season after season. So I'm glad they're getting love now. They totally deserve it. And then the A's, obviously, it's been up and down for forever. I mean, I was 10 years old. I'm pretty sure it was the 2002 season, A season, where they had that 20-game winning streak. So it's been up and down. And then for the Raiders, actually, speaking of 2002, that was also at my peak fandom. I was about 10 years old. And that was the season where we went to the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers and just got absolutely trounced. Very embarrassing. And from there, too, after 2002 and the seasons after, it went downhill very quickly for the Raiders, and we really went into a rut for a while. I mean, you know better than anyone. So I was happy to, you know, be a Raiders fan. Still love the Raiders so much, but it's definitely been up and down, as you know. But, you know, back then, definitely loved seeing, like, you know, guys like Rich Gannon be out there just crushing it. And, you know, I got to go to a couple Raiders games myself as a kid. So that was always an awesome community to be a part of.
That's awesome. So those are your favorite guys, I would imagine, because those players during those formative years, right? So that's got to be probably your favorite players, guys like Tim Brown, Rich Gannon, and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, like, more recently, Derek Carr, like, mad respect for that guy. That's awesome. He's crushing it. And there's always been a slew of, like, higher profile, like, you know, players that have come through the Raiders. But I feel like, you know, the big money that we spend on players like that don't always pay off. And it's more about the more grassroots guys that have been either a part of the organization for longer or aren't involved with the big money that really pay off. And so I'm glad to see that we try to balance that as best we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think about John Gruden coming back? Now, you know, he's kind of had, you know, questionable results so far, but what do you think about having Chucky back?
It's interesting. I mean, it's a blast from the past for me. I love having him back. I think the jury's still out. I mean, I think we got to see how he performs and definitely give it a few games, a few seasons even. But, I mean, for me, you know, it brings me back to being a kid. So honestly, I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that's true. Just the nostalgia factor, and being that the last time we were good with any consistency, he was the man. It's like it comes built in with a little bit of patience. You know what I mean? It's like just for that idea to want to give him some grace. So being an Oakland guy, what do you think about the move, man? What do you think about him going to Vegas?
I mean, it's sad. I think it's a little sad. I mean, from an organization perspective, I know they got to do what they got to do. I know that the Raiders themselves and what was it, Davis, right? But like when they came to Oakland and they built that huge stadium, I'm pretty sure Oakland is still in debt from the Oakland Coliseum.
Yeah.
My dad's an economist, and I think he told me one time, he's like, yeah, we're still paying off the debt from that stadium because they promised big and we built like Mount Davis, right? All these extra seats, and it never quite came through in that way. So I think financially speaking, I'm sure it's a move they probably got to make. As far as the branding goes and my loyalty to the team, I will still always love the Raiders. I'm sad they're leaving Oakland. But I hope that they get the love and recognition they deserve. And you know what? That Coliseum is so old and so run down. It's got to be a relief to know that a new stadium's coming your way.
I think I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think that's kind of where a lot of us wash out at, is that, if it was up to us, we'd have them stay in Oakland. But we also understand they got a business to run and they got to do something because, it's like marching into Mordor on the weekends. You know what I mean? Going to the Oakland Coliseum nowadays, So, but,
yeah, it's like a dive bar. Someone compared the Oakland Coliseum to a dive bar. I thought that was pretty appropriate.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, John, you've been a great guest. We appreciate you joining us here on the show. Raider Nation, check out the new album. The new album is called My Bad, and it's available on iTunes. Yep. John, is that the best place for people to find it, is on iTunes, or should we send them to another website?
Yeah, iTunes. Yeah, iTunes, Spotify is good. If you do want to buy it, definitely buy it from bandcamp.com. If you've heard of that, it's a great website. It supports artists. And so that's how we get the biggest revenue share, is if you buy it directly from bandcamp.com. And if you're just going to stream it or anything like that, iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, all that's good. Yeah, appreciate the support, definitely.
Absolutely. So definitely support what these guys are doing. Support John, support Stringer. And so, John, was it John or Johnny? I suppose I should have asked you that before we got on the air.
Let's go with Johnny. My band tends to call me Johnny, so I think that's more my public persona. So let's go with Johnny.
Okay, Johnny. All right, so we're with Johnny Spencer. He's from the band Stringer, so definitely support what these guys are doing. They're a great rock and roll band representing Oakland, now in New York City. Really cool what you guys got going on, and wish you the best. And they're playing all over. Like, you can find on Facebook, you can find a lot of their dates. They're playing all over the Northeast. So I know we have a lot of Northeast listeners, a lot of folks that are in Jersey and in New York City and whatnot. Y'all go out and see these guys and support them, because they're definitely worth checking out, man. Your guys' stuff is fantastic. But so before we let you go, we always ask our guests for a message to Raider Nation. So, Johnny Spencer, what do you want to tell Raider Nation?
Raider Nation, let me tell you this. I was born in Oakland. I live in New York City. But as you know, I'm a huge Bay Area fan, and no matter where you go in the world, no matter where you are in life, you have to rep the Bay Area, you have to rep Raider Nation, and just stay true to that no matter what happens in your life.
Awesome, man. Fantastic. Well, Johnny, can't thank you enough again for joining us, dude. It's been a lot of fun to talk to you, man. Look forward to following your band.
Thanks for having me on.
We'll definitely have to do this again.
Awesome, Murf. Thanks so much for the support, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Yeah, look forward to talking soon, dude.
Thank you for joining me here for this solo flight, this podcast selfie, something I thought would never do. Couldn't have done it without you guys. Couldn't have done it without the sea of fans. Couldn't have done it. Thankfully, we have the interview with Johnny Spencer, and most of all, the chat room. Those of you that have been in here and sending messages all show long. I can't read them all, but thanks to, because I can't scroll on it, but thank you to Ron, Chevy Raider, Dirty, who else is in there? Joe's in there. Ashton is in there. Now You See Me's in there. Running Bear's in there. Thank you to all of you. You guys rock. Raider Nation rocks. Enjoy your bye week. Man, no Raider football, so this will give you a taste of like what it's like without them, right? So better to have them and have them suck than to not have them at all. So anyways, enjoy your bye week, and we will see you for episode number 100 coming up very soon here on Raiders Fan Radio. All right, guys, have a good night. Appreciate you.
because I damn sure ain't thankful for what the Raiders are putting out right now. So I'll try to keep it positive. And